What the Tech is sponsored by Shutterstock.com, with over 20 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips. For 30% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use offer code WhatTheTech2. Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of audiobooks, with more than 100,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature. For a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/Andrew. Squarespace, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website, blog, or online portfolio. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com and use offer code WhatTheTech1. And by Ting, mobile that makes sense. Go to gfq.ting.com and get a $25 credit when signing up.
What the Tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. I'm joined by Paul Thurrott, as I am each and every week. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty well.
So
good, I guess. I don't know.
I feel like we just did a show.
We did.
We did about 5 days ago.
It's okay. Lots has happened.
And now everything is back to normal. We're on our regular schedule. Skype isn't working properly. Everything is back to where it's supposed to be.
Yep.
Lots going on right now in technology. There's a big event in Europe happening. I got an email from somebody that were asking me if it's relevant to the U.S.
Really?
Yeah. Do you think it's relevant to what we get here?
Well, yeah, it's not a Europe event. It occurs in Europe.
But there's a lot of European devices.
There's a lot of Asian devices, like Chinese devices, that we're never going to see. But that's not the point. It's a worldwide event.
I don't know. I was thinking about it. I'm like, but there were a couple announcements that I was kind of excited about. You missed it last year, right? You had just missed it.
Yeah, I happened to be in Barcelona the week, I guess, before or after. I don't remember. A little bit off. Yeah.
I think it was like the week before or after you were there. But the event's going on, and I want to cover a couple devices, and I want to have a discussion about them because it could lead into something else. Asus is on this. It could lead into something interesting.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Asus has a tablet phone and a phone tablet that they're releasing.
You know,
the PhonePad and the PadFone, I think it's called.
I wonder about this device.
No, I do too. For years, I've mocked things like this. I'm like, nobody wants to walk around with a gigantic phone. Like I mock that the big Galaxy phone, the Note 2. I always say like it's way too big until I actually got to use one. I'm like, hey, you know what? It's not that bad at all. But
right.
Maybe they're onto something. Maybe these tablets that we're getting should have phone support in them.
No, I think so. What I'm sorry. I mean, I didn't explain that clearly. It's running Windows 8, right?
Which one?
This Asus device that you talked about.
The one I'm talking. No, it's running Android. No. Android.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there is I thought it was Asus. All right. I could have sworn there was a company that was showing off a Windows version of this kind of thing.
There could be.
Okay, that was why I was questioning it, because my understanding is that that's not really possible. Just from a licensing standpoint. But it doesn't matter. I think I'm with you. It sounds silly on the face of it, like the shoe phone from Get Smart. But actually, it's not too hard to imagine. I mean, if you use a Surface tablet or any kind of tablet, attach a keyboard to it, put a larger screen next to it, whatever. Why can't that thing be a phone? A phone has the same processor and basic capabilities as your average tablet. I mean, it seems like that could work fine.
See, what I would like, listen, I don't think anybody's going to go buy a phone and use that exclusively as a tablet and go use that as their phone. I think that's a little silly, but yeah. I would like to buy, 4 or 5 devices and have them all as my phone. So I could take one. Let's say I'm going into the city and I have a meeting. Rather than taking my phone, I know I'm going to be using my tablet with me. So I could just pop in, a Bluetooth thing or a headphone and just use that as my phone.
Yeah.
But that doesn't exist. Like, you can't have the same phone. You can't have, 4 phones that go to the same number. You could do, the forwarding stuff with Google.
You could do Google
Voice, but yeah. That's kind of, you still have to go through that process, and your phone won't ring on a tablet.
I mean, I guess real world wise, the big issue here is that, as I've discovered over the past month, using a single device to do everything, in my case, the Surface Pro, not everything, including the phone, obviously, but just switching between tablet and computer is, it's a fairly lackluster experience. And part of the problem is that it's not designed well for that kind of use, that these devices work well if you only use them in one way. So if you had a Surface Pro and you just used it like it was sort of a tablet with a keyboard attached to it, that would be fine. But once you plug it into a monitor, it everything gets screwed up. It's wrong. It's off. And what needs to happen is that the system has to be designed for that usage. And a phone would be even worse, because obviously a phone today is designed only for that small screen and for touch only. And it's got this kind of way of doing things that don't make sense once you move up to a bigger screen, especially. But attach a keyboard, try to turn it into a computer,
it doesn't work the same way.
Yeah, it's just a different kind of thing. It's not designed for that purpose.
Because it's we're kind of going into this like universal platform, right? We're seeing it with Windows. iOS is, I'm sure there's going to be more iOSification of Mac OS and vice versa, but there's still a major disconnect when you have a phone, a tablet, and a traditional PC. There's still a disconnect there, even though they're kind of talking to each other at this point.
Well, Apple and Microsoft and Ubuntu also is apparently doing this. The notion that you could have one core operating system that runs across all these device types is fine. I mean, I think it's been proven iOS first that works fine. Apple went about it in a very particular way. Microsoft has a slightly different kind of hybrid approach, but I don't know, one device, one system, that can do all three. I don't know. It's more theory than reality at this point.
Asus, it's called the PhonePad. It's a 7-inch Android tablet. It has phone built-in phone functionality, just like the new Galaxy Note 8.0. So it's an 8-inch Galaxy Note, and it's going to go for $249, which is pretty reasonable. I mean, the specs. Interesting. It's running an Intel processor. It's running the Atom Z 2420 chip.
So I got to find that thing that I thought this was.
You're talking about the ZTE phone, the ZTE tablet. Yeah, it's a Windows tablet.
But it's a phone, right?
It's a phone, yeah.
Which I don't believe is technically possible. That's what I mean. But so you're saying it's ZTE?
I believe it's ZTE that's doing it. I'm looking at. Actually, here's the picture. Let's see here. Sure. Integrated with Microsoft Mobile World Congress. The phone I'm not curious about. Let me see here. Between Microsoft and Nintendo. It's a 4.7 inch. Here it is. So let me pull this up. What the channel is this? 4. Oh, 4. It's not working. There we go. So this is it. Look at this. Yeah, it's Windows 8.
Yeah, I don't believe that this is possible.
A functional device?
I don't think that they can actually make this thing.
So according to this...
have you scrolled down to the picture that shows it docked with the phone handset thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is like pie in the sky stuff, right?
Look at that thing.
You and I were talking offline earlier about Longhorn days when HP did that Athena PC concept. Very, very similar to this. In fact, if you were to look up Athena PC or whatever, I bet you would find a picture of a device that looked, very much like that thing.
But it's interesting because that's something that we've never been able to kind of combine, and there's always been this fantasy where like, oh look, my phone is ringing, it's on the computer. Okay, here we go. Let me answer, and there's Nancy on the computer.
Yes.
But it's never really worked that way. I mean, there's ways to obviously there's been ways to do it, but it's been awful. Yeah. It's an awful experience, and the same goes for kind of these tablets. Is it because right now they're saying, well, the phone, everybody's using a phone, but everybody also uses VoIP services. There's Skype on everything. You could use FaceTime with iOS. You could use Google Hangouts and Google Talk with Android devices. Do we really need the phone to ring on your tablet?
No, actually what we need is for phone, like everything else, to be sort of IP based and to be that thing that Google Voice is trying to, Google Voice is to phone like an IR blaster is to like a set-top box DVR thing. Like you you're controlling some old-fashioned thing, and using it in kind of a new way. And ideally, the way that the world works is the way that messaging works today, whatever. Where you're not calling a number, you're calling a person, and that this is the reason that messaging systems and unified messaging systems have this notion of like presence. Like where's Paul? If Paul's sitting at his computer, ring this thing. If Paul's out in the world, ring his cell phone. If Paul's at home, ring his home phone. And there's no intelligent way to do that. And so Google Voice is like a dumb way. Well, it's a good solution, but I mean, it is essentially dumb because it has to kind of ring. You tell it, ring these 3 phones in this order. And, it's dumb, and if you want to micromanage it every time you leave the house, I guess you could configure it to only call your cell phone. But
there's no true way of knowing like where Paul is really on all these devices.
And the reason it's so dumb is that the technology exists today that if you have a digital device with you that has, location services built into it, it knows where you are. It could be integrated with your Outlook calendar, or Google Calendar, whatever, and know whether you're busy or not or whatever. It's weird to me that this is still futuristic, but it is.
But I mean, it's almost there. You're right, because it knows where Paul is and it knows where I am, and it'll say like, "Hey, look, Paul is in the neighborhood."
Yeah.
I had Google on my phone, and I've never been able to get it to do it again. I went out to a bar, and my wife was meeting me there, and she was on I guess she was like down the block, and it said, "Hey, Jessica Zarian is in the neighborhood." Like Google told me on my phone, like it knew.
Right.
And then it said sure. It's done that like twice for me. And then it was like, so-and-so is at the same bar as you. So, but why can't they know? Like, what would be cool? Like you register all your devices and you say, whatever device is on the go via, you could spot it with the GPS. That's a device that I want to ring. So if everything is at home, that's where I dock it. That's my home base. But if I go with a device, I go out, that's the device I want to ring.
Yeah. Ideally, this is something you configure once. Like, in other words, you don't want to micromanage your presence. You want to have it auto-sense it.
Auto-sense it. Yeah, I don't want to go in and be like, okay, between the hours of 5 and 10, ring this.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, while we're still using landlines and cell phones, with non-data based voice calls, we're going to have to jury rig something to make it work. It's just the way it is.
It would be cool though. I like that idea.
No, I know, but that's why it's interesting to look at that ZTE thing or whatever that was, the iMate, whatever the heck that thing was, the Windows 8 thing that can't possibly exist.
It's iMate, by the way. I was wrong. It's iMate. Yeah.
Okay, so you look at that and you say, yeah, okay, yeah, but if you know anything about Windows 8 or if you know anything about any of this stuff, you realize technically this is not really possible in an elegant fashion now, but this is where we should be heading. Microsoft has all these pieces in place. They have Windows, obviously. They have Skype and Lync. They have the messaging services and servers like Exchange and all that stuff on the back end.
Let me ask you this, Paul. I know you've probably explained this to me before, but
is this the birds and the bees thing again?
Yeah, I forgot how it all works. I'm having a problem. So, but with Windows Phone 8, and I've been using it here. I mean, generally every day now. I love the operating system, but you know what I constantly keep saying to myself? If I had this in a tablet. Now, I know, listen, it exists, yes, with Windows 8, but again, that disconnect between why couldn't this been a tablet? I mean, is it still possible to have, a 7-inch device that's running this?
Right. So this is the gray area, and this is part of the reason I initially said that Windows 8 phone thing couldn't exist. So today, as I understand it, I could be wrong, this could be outdated, but as I understand it, Windows Phone can only be licensed, the OS that is, on devices of a certain size, and it has to have that, obviously, the phone capabilities. And then the Windows RT stuff can only be licensed down to a certain size. And my understanding on that was 7 inches was the smallest.
For what? Windows 8?
For Windows 8 / RT. And that there is no phone capability there. Although people who have been following this along will remember back, I don't know if it's the developer preview, there was a demo where there was a phone app, like a kind of a call app, on the start screen that they were showing, and so obviously they were looking at this or thinking about it.
Because the gray zone exists now. I think in a perfect world, phones wouldn't get bigger than 4.5 inches, and tablets wouldn't get smaller than 7.8 inches. But that doesn't.
I don't think it matters, and I don't think that's going to be the case. So it really doesn't matter.
Like it gets kind of tricky here,
big time.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, okay, you know what, Nokia now, and there's a lot of rumors are coming up now that Nokia will be debuting a tablet, and it'll be running Windows 8.
Yeah.
That, to me, would be an awesome tablet because we've seen the design with the Lumia line.
Yep.
We've seen what they could do with it. Now, will it work in a tablet? Will it be RT? Will it be Windows 8, Pro?
Yep. I have a theory that Windows RT is not making it, and that maybe the Microsoft one is going to be the only one we see. Because if you were to step back in time just a few months and you said Nokia is going to make a tablet, what's it going to be? It seems like RT would be what they would go with, because the hardware that they're working with now in the Lumias is essentially the same hardware they would use on a tablet, and they, there's something they understand a little bit better, whatever. But I really don't see these things taking off, and we'll see. It almost, I guess, it doesn't matter, but they have a nice industrial design. I think not so much. It's funny. The 920, their highest end device, is the one that I think they kind of botched.
Okay, tell me why.
Because it's got this unibody design that doesn't have expandability. So it's this weird thing where you can get like a Lumia 820, which I have, or a 620, which is a really low end device, or the new 720 that was just announced that has a nice camera. But they all have micro SD expandability, whereas the 920 does not. It also, the other thing is, and I really do think this is important to people, with a device like the 920, they build in that wireless charging capability, which is nice. On the other devices that have the back panels you can take off the device, they have interchangeable back panels that offer you different colors, which is a huge deal for people. And it has that charging built into the cover instead of into the device itself. So you have that as sort of a value or something you can pay extra for. But I think the big deal on these devices is that you can buy what is essentially, they're all really black, right? Like a black 820 or 720. But you get that panel that you can plug on that kind of colorizes it and it customizes it. And I think people like to do stuff like that. Like you may buy a red one and be like, I feel like changing it out, and it's only $30 or whatever.
I have to get it to match my shoes, Paul.
Yeah, well, by the way, people would do that, and I think this is the thing that Nokia is now coming around to. That I bet that 920 design, which is a kind of a fall over from the previous gen, where they had the 800, the 900, is their old style, and I bet that stuff goes away. I bet the style we see now in the 720, the 820, the 620, where there's a back shell that comes off and has colors, is the wave of the future for their stuff. And if you think about that with tablets, it's kind of the same thing, right? Like you can picture, and Dell used to do this. They'd have color panels you could pop off of their laptops. I think I really do think that's a big deal for people.
I'm telling you, it is, because my wife has maybe like 30, 40 covers for her iPhone. She has those cases.
Yeah.
And she puts on a different case every time we go out. Yep. Like if she has blue shoes on, she'll put on a blue case on that thing.
Apple is too anal retentive about design to ever offer a clippable back to any of their devices, but they should do that.
But you know what? You never know. They might have more colors added. They might do, a red iPhone.
Well, right. So they have a red iPod Touch now, for example. You can look at this thing and understand what a red iPhone would look like. It would be beautiful. But I really think the ability to replace it is the big things. You buy a cyan Lumia 920 or whatever, you're stuck with cyan. You're done. Yeah. Like there's no, the closest you can get to fixing that is if you had bought a white one and then you buy a case or something. But that's already a pretty big device, and adding a case on top of that is not what you're looking for. So
Paul, I have a question for you, and I kind of have this fantasy about what every tablet should be like and every laptop should be like, and we've discussed this. Sure. But before we go into that, I need to take a little break and talk about our sponsor, Shutterstock.com. Shutterstock is a new advertiser here on the show, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. When we make websites here at the network, whenever we are looking to change the image on something, or we're looking to put out an email or even just, we were looking for a picture of a wrestler for an image we wanted to use. And we went to Shutterstock.com, and it has a bunch of stock images, vector files, and video all there, so you could use it. You have over 20 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, video clips, whatever you're looking to use, it's all over there. And they're not like some of those other guys where they nickel and dime you. You pay them a monthly fee with these guys, and you have access to their entire library. So you're not kind of stuck. If you use the wrong image, it doesn't work for you. You could just go and, download another one. Very easy. It's right at your fingertips. And if you use our offer code, WhatTheTech2, here's the great part. You get 30% off on a new account at Shutterstock.com. Offer code WhatTheTech2, and you get 30% off. I think we've been using Shutterstock for like 2 years. My wife has a educational website for work, and they have a membership to Shutterstock. So whenever they need to like put out like a flyer for the students or for the parents, they just go and use one of the stock footage that they have there. It's amazing. Shutterstock.com. If you are a web developer, if you're a graphic artist, or if you're doing video editing, you should definitely check them out. Shutterstock.com. And I want to thank them for supporting What the Tech. So, Paul.
Yes, sir.
And I've seen a couple of these devices at the event this week, and I want to know, in your opinion, if you think this is a realistic device. And I'd love to know from the people in the chat if this is something that's going to kind of work. I have this fantasy where I buy, let's say I have an Android tablet, whatever device I have, an Android phone. I don't need to go and buy another tablet. You could buy like $100 dummy screen and just dock this thing in there. Oh, and we've seen this happen. We've seen a lot of companies put this out. Asus has put it out, but it hasn't really picked up steam. These dockable Android devices.
Right.
Why do you think they're not picking up steam? Because in reality, it's one device. You don't need to constantly buy, 2 or 3 devices. You could have, one 9-inch or 7-inch, whatever, and you just dock the phone on there, and there you go. You just walk around with it. That's the idea behind the PadFone. But I haven't seen it pick up.
This had to have been an accessory at some point for the iPhone/iPod Touch, where you've got this thing that's essentially just a big screen, And I suppose if it was done right, it would also have an extra battery in it, so that you would only use the battery in that thing and not in your phone, and it would charge your phone and that kind of stuff. And you asked earlier, why not Windows Phone on a tablet? And it's not hard to imagine Windows Phone on a bigger screen. There are plenty of games, many of which are excellent. Some of the media experiences are really good. The music and video hub and the, Spotify and apps like that would be great on a 7-inch tablet. That'd be great. I don't know though. This gets into that territory we were in earlier, where one device for one purpose. Though there's a complexity to that, and I don't know. I feel like hardware makers just have more of a vested interest in selling you a thing, and they'd rather sell you 2 things than one thing you could use more.
So you don't think it'll be this device that everybody picks up? I mean, we've even seen the laptops, and nobody bought those things.
Yeah.
Nobody bought it.
I just think that, smartphones are a little different because they're very expensive, really, even though, we buy them on contract and it seems like they're not. Smartphones really are $500-$600 a piece. A lot of this stuff is really disposable. If you're spending $200 on a Nexus 7 tablet in the last year, and then a new version comes out, and maybe that one has expandable storage or more storage or a higher resolution screen or whatever it is, I think a lot of people are like, whatever, I'll pass this down to someone else and move on. Whereas the thing we're talking about now is more of an investment. And what's the shelf life of this thing? I mean, a year from now, do you really want to use this same exact smartphone as the basis for some tablet, or do you want to move on? Because this right now we're in a place where the tablet OSs and tablets are kind of racing ahead.
Yeah, HP, and this was interesting to me. HP announced a tablet, a 7-inch tablet. It's like dirt cheap. It's like $169.
Yeah, it's
this kind of
little low end.
What does it say about their relationship with Microsoft?
Well, we've already known that's on the outs. These guys were BFFs, and now they're playing the field.
I mean, even to the point that they want to compete with them with WebOS, right?
Well, okay. So here's the one thing I would say: the Chromebook thing, I don't understand. The HP said they're going to make a Chromebook. I don't get that. I really don't get that. The tablet, though, I think the way to look at that thing is it's like when PC makers shipped Linux on netbooks, whenever that was, 6 years ago, 5 years ago. They didn't have a choice. In other words, I'm sure one of the things that HP did was investigate whether it made sense to put some version of Windows on this tablet. Mm-hmm. And what they discovered was they could have paid a lot of money, relatively speaking, for Windows RT, put it on this 7-inch device, had no apps, no good media experiences, and it would cost more money, right? Or they could put Android on it, which is essentially free for them. They're doing a very basic version of Android, right? They're not doing a lot of customizations, which I think is relevant, by the way.
4.1. I think they're putting version 4.1, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a known quantity for consumers. It's something that people understand, that they want, that has value, and I think that's why they're doing it.
I mean, I'm looking at $169.99. They're saying the device is going to be available in April. I mean, it looks like every other lower end, 7-inch tablet. So I don't know what's going to be different about these guys, but
I just think they just needed to be there.
They just needed something, you're saying.
In the same way that Microsoft had to move very quickly to get into smartphones with Windows Phone 7 originally, and very quickly to get into tablets with Windows 8, Windows RT, HP is right now the world's biggest maker of PCs, and they have zero presence in tablets or smartphones. They have to have something, So it looks okay. It's a nice looking device. It's 1024 by 600, which is like Kindle Fire non-HD quality, which is middling at best.
$169 though. I mean, it's
the price
cheap.
Is right. Yeah, the price is right, and it has storage expansion, which is something you cannot get on a Nexus 7 or a Kindle Fire HD. So it has its own little advantages too.
I still feel that something is missing from all these devices. They're all missing something, and I can't put my finger on it. What are they missing?
Steve Jobs?
Maybe. I mean, in all reality, I mean, the master of marketing a product and convincing people that they need it, when there's no market for it.
It's like we have a tablet too,
Yeah, but I mean, are you interested in any, let's say, 10-inch Android tablet?
No.
No,
couldn't care less.
But the 7-inch tablet, you're kind of open to that idea.
Well, I am, but it's because of the way I view these kind of tablets. I view them specifically as content devices, and it's something I'm going to bring on a trip next to a laptop that I'm going to use to get work done on, and I'm going to use it to watch movies, maybe listen to some music. So battery life is a big deal for me. Storage, means more than resolution. So in some ways, that HP device is pretty good. Like I have a Nexus 7 and an Amazon Kindle Fire HD, neither of which have a lot of storage.
Okay, so when's the last time you turned them on?
Which ones?
Both. The Kindle Fire HD and the Nexus 7.
I use the Kindle Fire HD every single day, so I read the newspapers on it. I never run apps on it. I rarely watch movies on it, maybe on a trip or something. The Nexus 7 I never use. I coincidentally actually did have it on the other night, but I took it out. It's like the thing, I had done on the phone weeks ago where it has an update to 4.2.2 maybe, or whatever the version is. I don't have a cause to use this stuff around the house.
Yeah, I think this is the big problem. And
well, I may not be average.
I'm not average too, but I'm thinking the problem right now is that because it's so new and exciting, we're going and buying these things every year when they come out. Oh, it's a new 7-inch tablet.
It's getting a lot less exciting, though, isn't it?
Exactly. And now it's getting a lot less exciting. And the average person isn't going and doing this. They don't have $199 to spend every year on a new tablet. They don't understand the point of that. And I think the same thing is going to happen to the iPad, where people aren't going and buying the same iPad every single year when it's released. They're actually waiting now. Yeah, I mean, but people are waiting. So I think this buzz around these tablets, we're realizing, it's a cool idea. I think it's something that people are going to, it's going to be like a cell phone. It's going to be like a laptop. You have a desktop, a laptop, a cell phone, and a tablet. But that drive to go and buy the latest iPad every single year is kind of calming down.
Right. Well, it's. I think the capabilities are getting kind of standardized across these things. That we don't really. It's no big deal. Like I look at this stuff. Like obviously I love technology. I'm following what's happening at Mobile World Congress. I look at what they're doing. These guys have this and these guys have this. Samsung's coming out with like a whatever they're calling it, Galaxy Note 8.0, blah blah blah. I pay attention to this stuff.
But do you think it's too much saturation in the market that's affecting our perception of what these devices were? Because if you go back 2 years ago, when there was an announcement for a new tablet, you were excited. You're like, okay, I knew every spec about this device. I wanted to see if is it going to be competing with the iPad. And it seems like because there's so many of them being announced and they're all identical, that excitement for that entire market has kind of fallen flat on its face. And I'll tell you, I don't know, and this is, and I'm sure I'll get an email telling me I'm wrong. I don't know anybody within the last year and a half that has gone out and bought a Galaxy, tablet or a Samsung tablet. I know a couple people that are kind of into this stuff that have bought the 10-inch one that Google released and the 7-inch one that Google released. But I don't know anybody going to a store and buying, the latest and greatest Galaxy tablet. I know people are buying iPads, but I don't know anybody going and buying it because I think it's just, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out why people aren't buying it. And I'm sure the numbers are going to show that, oh, yeah, look, millions of people are buying it. But I feel like it's missing something.
A lot of this stuff is them experimenting with what works, right? So I think in the case of Samsung and their Galaxy products, that they have seen great success for whatever reason with these Note, maxi phones or whatever, mini tablets, that have a pen. And people seem to really like these. They've latched onto these things as a big product. So now their 10-inch tablets or the regular mainstream broadband cellular connected tablets are being branded as Note, and they're going to put the pens on them, and that's working out for them. So I expect to see that however these things are branded, that the Note type tablets are going to be what's a big deal for Samsung.
Yeah.
That's where they've kind of found their niche. The Google things will always be of some interest because it's that pure Google experience. They're going to be players like HP is hitting the low end of the market. I'm sure they'll expand beyond that. But for now, the HP one is sort of interesting just because it's pretty cheap and it's nice.
Cheap. And it's I think it's a pretty pure Google experience.
Yeah.
Much cleaner than what you're going to get, with Samsung.
Much cleaner. Or Amazon, which is not even.
Or Amazon, yeah. But you know what? But here's the thing, and I've been thinking about this. I wasn't crazy about the whole thing with Amazon taking, Android and customizing it at first. And I started using it. I'm like, you know what? This is a cool idea. It's very unique. It's very different than anything else in the market. It's not the same old phone or tablet that we get with every other manufacturer. Do manufacturers need to start using, Android as just the core and just customizing it and having, the Samsung experience if it works? Just a pure, Samsung experience, not an Android experience, but a Samsung experience.
So I think his name is James Kendrick. He writes for ZDNet, wrote an article this week where he talked about his contention that the Samsung Android experience is in many ways superior to the plain Android experience.
See, and I have a total opposite feel about it.
Yeah, I honestly don't know enough about it to carry the way. I approach things a little, I'm not really in the Android world a huge way yet, so whatever. But I think that is interesting. I do think that that this market is going to have to calm down, and that there will be the pure Google experience, and then there'll be these very highly modified kind of value-add experiences where the extreme right now is Amazon, but maybe Samsung is kind of getting there. I don't really know. I'm just
because we've seen. I mean, Motorola did it with the Blur, and we've seen Samsung do it with their thing. HTC even had the Sense UI on that thing, but it's still, when you're using it, who did it really well? And I'll tell you, HTC did it really well with Windows Mobile.
Yeah,
because if you picked up an HTC device and you picked up, an HP Windows Mobile device, the experience was totally different.
See, Microsoft hated that.
But that's what really made Windows Mobile decent. I'm telling you, one of the best hardware phones that I ever had was my HTC Touch Pro.
Okay, but I mean, I guess the thing I would say to that is just that you're right. I mean, it was better, but the issue there was that the Windows experience was so bad. So I mean, one of the goals. Yeah, well, I mean, one of the goals of Windows Phone 8 is for that not to be an issue, right? That it should be good enough. You don't need to worry about that kind of thing.
So I want to pause here for a little bit and talk about Squarespace. I've been talking about them for a while. They've been advertising with the show. You know what, Paul? I got a very nice email from them the other day, and they said they're so happy with the results from the show. A lot of people are actually sunny. I'm not laughing. I just, you know what it is. I guess it's just how I look at myself. I don't think if I was talking, I don't know. I'm just talking. You know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to sell something to you. So it's this effortless conversation that I have about the ads where I'm not saying like, go buy it now. You know, I never push it. I talk about services that I like. So when someone actually, sends me an email, it's like, hey, listen, we're getting a lot of great feedback. They really like the product. I'm like, really? So I am doing something right. I am talking about it properly.
Right.
And this is why Squarespace does well. And they don't really need me to do well. I'll tell you that because their websites are phenomenal. They do the hosting for you. They do everything for you. It's an all-in-one site. So you don't have to go and buy hosting from this company and then buy your domain from that other one and then build the site or put, whatever database you're doing. Everything is at Squarespace. They make it very easy for you. It's all plug and play. And the cool thing is we're talking about tablets. We're talking about phones. We're talking about laptops. If you have a if you have a Squarespace site, I should say, unlike WordPress, it'll scale the site for you. So whatever image you put on there, it'll scale it for that device. So it makes it very easy on mobile or at home. Also, if you're not really into that simple 1, 2, 3 thing and you want to develop a site, they have a developer package where you could do all the nitty-gritty coding and PHP stuff, which I know nothing about. So Squarespace for someone like me is phenomenal because my brain just doesn't function when you tell me, put this value here to equal here and make sure the parameters are this. I don't understand that stuff. I just have someone to do it for me. If you don't have someone to do it for you, Squarespace is the place. If you sign up, you get 10% off your first purchase on a new account, and the trial is totally free. Just use offer code WhatTheTech2. You can go try it out, see if you like it. If you don't like it, guess what? You don't have to stay with them. It was no credit card needed, nothing like that. If you want to sign up, you get 10% off. I know Paul has a Squarespace site. I am building a Squarespace site actually for someone right now, for Chauncey, because he's a photographer. People who watch the network, Chauncey Aiden does a show for me. He's a photographer, and he doesn't have a portfolio. And all I'm doing with Squarespace is just dragging photos in there, and that's it. It just does it for me. Squarespace.com, offer code WhatTheTech2. Free trial, and you get 10% off if you decide to sign up. Thanks a lot, Squarespace, for supporting What the Tech. I guess it's just like I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I just don't value me at all.
That's understandable, but
like whenever I get an email from a viewer.
Honestly, look, you talk about stuff and you review stuff, and I think the highest compliment you can pay any product or service or whatever is that you actually use it. I think that's the cool thing about some of the stuff we're able. I mean, obviously there's advertising and.
Well, I got an email from someone telling me that they're not happy that we have ads. So.
Yes. Did he include $100 check in there too?
No, I actually sent him a very nice email, and he told me that's the reason why he stopped listening to another network. So he was very upset with me. I don't know. I sent him a nice email, but I just put my hands up in the air. I'm like, what? A lot of there's two stories here that I definitely want to get to. One is LG purchasing WebOS for TV. And I believe you put in the notes next to it and drops Windows Phone.
Yeah.
What does that say? And let's speculate a little. A couple months ago, we were discussing this and we were saying, someone like LG could benefit from WebOS. Remember we were talking about that? And you kind of looked at me like I'm crazy.
I talked about Amazon maybe buying them. I think was my suggestion.
And I was saying, you have Samsung has become the go-to Google phone. Motorola in second place. So what happens to companies like HTC and LG and whoever else that's putting out Android phones? They're not really getting that push. They might benefit from having something like WebOS. Now I said that I never thought it would happen. I just said it. And it seems like they're going to use it for television, but them dropping Windows Phone.
Well, I think these things are actually unrelated, but
it could happen.
But they happen kind of in the same week. So
why did they drop Windows Phone?
I don't think LG. Well, I'd have to think back. LG hasn't released a Windows Phone in the United States, at least since the first generation. I think it's been a long, long time. So I just don't think they ever really took off in any meaningful way. I don't know enough about them to make fun of them or dump on them or whatever. But with the first generation of Windows phones, obviously Samsung was the big deal. And now for the second generation and now in the third, of course, Nokia is by far the big deal. And I guess they just never really had any traction with it. Obviously, Android is the big deal in the market overall for these companies. But maybe LG is trying to, differentiate their offerings in a different way. And, I would love to see, I'd just love to see a WebOS phone.
Me too.
More so than, yeah, I did too. Although as time goes on, it's like the Amiga, it was obviously for the day, it was amazing. But
you know what? I said this on another show. I think the biggest problem with WebOS and with Palm was that everything at that time was being compared to an iPhone killer. Yeah. And they did not stand a chance when you put that phone out on the market to be an iPhone killer. Nothing did at that point. I mean, we're going back to 2009. There was nothing on the market that was at that level. So when you're putting all your eggs in one basket and your company's hemorrhaging money and you're saying this has to make it, and everybody's saying, it's a pretty cool idea, it's a nice operating system, the device is okay, but it's not there, it's not an iPhone killer, you're dead. Right. You're dead in the water. It's a big problem. What are they going to do on the TV though with WebOS? I'm just curious why them.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
what happened? What happened to Google? Google TV was supposed to be on every Samsung and LG device.
Well, again, in this case, it may just be about differentiation. It certainly was an attractive looking system. Maybe it's not hard to imagine this notion of apps that run on your TV in the same way that we have apps that run on devices of other kinds. So, and Google TV obviously has apps. Xbox has apps. Apple TV has apps. So maybe this is their smart TV apps platform. Like I talk about my cheap Vizio TV, when you hit a button on the remote, this little thing slides down and there are these apps there. And I don't know what's running underneath it. Like what,
I think it's Linux.
Platform is.
It's all Linux.
Okay. So, this is a way for them to buy into something that has a nicer experience.
And how's the experience on that?
It's okay. It's bare bones, but it does the job. It's Netflix, Hulu, some Amazon stuff, whatever. It's fine. It's not as good as the experience on the Xbox, the Apple TV, the Roku, but it's built into the TV, and that's...
See, I've been using Roku a little bit more lately, and I have to tell you, I'm not crazy about the experience on Roku. Paul's phone is buzzing.
On the screen itself or with the remote?
Both.
Both, yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like it, but I think that's a market that totally someone could take over and dominate it, just like how the iPhone took over the phone market in 2007-8. There's nothing really right now that's, wow, this is amazing. And people love the Roku, but I think because you're comparing it to such garbage.
I know.
Western Digital's releasing a media box like that, and it's awful.
There's no way I'm going to ever buy anything like that. D-Link is doing the same thing. I don't trust those companies to do anything right. Apple could destroy every company in this market if they would just open up a little bit more and accept partnerships and put all of the apps that everybody wants on. The only reason that Roku exists is because Apple doesn't partner with all of those same companies. If Apple did, Roku would be gone.
Oh, yeah, because we're looking for a developer right now to build us a Roku app.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to a couple people, and there's not many people that, develop for Roku, but what's the value? And I'm thinking, like, the price is high to develop for that, but is there a value to put it on Roku?
Future?
Exactly, that's exactly what I'm thinking.
It's like developing for like TiVo. There were people that did that, and TiVo's still around, but it's not a big deal, really. So,
we are on Roku through the Blip app, but
you should start a Roku app right now, because by doing so, you will guarantee that Apple will open up their developer store to Apple TV and just make that happen.
And it's much easier to develop for Apple. I could find someone that could do it overnight for me.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Is that a risk that I want to take right now? Because who knows what they're going to do? They're going to probably say, okay, you know what? If you want to develop for us, here you go. Submit it to us. We have to approve it, approve the content, whatever. And now you're on Apple TV. And that's all you need.
Right.
So it's interesting. The other thing I want to go into is the Firefox phones. The Ubuntu. I'm sorry. Why did I write this? Why did I write? I mean the Ubuntu phones. I don't know why I wrote Firefox here.
Oh.
Well,
they're all coming. I mean, the one thing I'll say about Ubuntu, Linux makes no sense on the desktop, which is what completely screws up their plans for everything else. In other words, they're doing what Microsoft is doing with Windows. They're doing what Apple is doing with iOS / OS 10 on the desktop. And they're taking the same core and they're putting it across tablet and phone. And it makes all the sense in the world. Except that it's like Linux and nobody cares about Linux.
But have you used Ubuntu? To be fair, have you used it recently? Like, I'm trying to think when the last time I used it.
Like everyone else on Earth, no. And that's the point. I look at it all the time. I went and watched the Mark Shuttleworth videos about the tablet and everything. I'm not as immediately dismissive of it as people may believe, but it's just that it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. No one uses it, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good it is.
It's fascinating. Why don't people use it? I do the same thing. I have this fantasy that I have one computer here that runs Linux, and I do everything on it. I have this fantasy about it to do it, but it's the actual. Yeah, but I got to install this thing, and if I hate it, then I got to do a format. I got to put Windows on it again, or I got to whatever it is. I just have this weird thing where I can't get myself to do it. I used to do it all the time, and you know what would happen? I would hate myself for doing it because I would decide at 11:30 at night, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to install Linux.
There is no thing where someone can say, yeah, but you don't understand. This is like the one thing that Linux does way better than Windows or Mac OS 10. Here it is, and this is like why you got to have this. Yeah. Linux exists solely to be a free alternative to the other operating systems. That's all it is. And in the old days, you could make this case, well, it's not a bad deal if you want to run it on like older hardware because new versions of Windows don't run well on old versions.
But I mean, that was true when it was Vista.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. That's what I mean. It's this the reasons for using this thing have evaporated for the most part. Beyond the fact that it is free. I mean, it's obviously there's some people into the whole free free software movement.
But Paul, I mean, it's free. Okay. It's free, but But you bought that computer and it came with something. Nobody's building a gaming machine and putting Linux on it.
I know. It's crazy. The thought that anyone would put something together, put Linux on it, maybe use it as like a home theater PC with some crazy open source software that, it's like, I just, and it's not a big thing.
I mean, the last couple times that I installed Linux, and please, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. It was a total pain in the ass to do. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how easy it is. I don't think that matters. They've done everything they can to get people to run Linux. They have those CD installs, those the things where it kind of runs off of the CD, it runs virtually, blah blah blah. Like nobody uses it. People try to come to me and say, "But Paul, Linux is the basis for Android, so ha ha ha. It's there's more Linux anyway. Android looks nothing like Linux. It works nothing like Linux. It doesn't run Linux apps. The reason it's popular is because it's not Linux. Nobody cares about Linux. It's just, I'm sorry. It's not like a dig at it. It's certainly not a dig at people who like it because they're out there. It's just not a mainstream thing. It just isn't. And so we only have so much bandwidth. You can only do so many things at once. This is just not a mainstream solution. So they have the right idea. Putting it on PCs, tablets, and smartphones makes plenty of sense. It's just that when Microsoft does it, they can say, hey, we got 1.3 billion users using this thing. Bingo. Apple, we got whatever the number is, 600 million people using iOS. Bingo. It makes plenty of sense. Ubuntu, we got like 1 million. Yeah, but what?
A couple of million.
It's fascinating because, Dell was doing those Linux computers for a while with the netbooks. But it didn't really make a difference in the pricing structure between a Linux computer or a Windows computer. I mean, you're literally talking about $25, $50.
I don't think I mean, I just don't think it was a big business for him. Period.
Like you know where it would have made perfect sense. You had a Dell Ubuntu laptop that was $299, and every Windows computer on the face of the planet didn't start until $600. That was the starting price for a Windows computer. Then you may be able to sell some because it's in its own market. It's a low cost computer, but you could buy a Windows machine for $199 now.
Right.
I mean, $249. There's hundreds of laptops on the market, and they're all pretty decent. They're okay.
Yeah. So, if this thing is good enough, if there wasn't an Android, Linux would have made plenty of sense on the tablet if they could have done all the work to, do the multi-touch and all that kind of junk. But there is an Android, and it just doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter how good it is.
I think that's the case with a lot of devices now, though. I think it doesn't really matter how good it is, even with software.
And I want to be clear, it's not a dig at the quality of it. That's not the point. It's just, I love technology. I was fascinated by the story of Linux. I was fascinated by Linux for many years, a good decade. I basically installed every version that came out from all of the major distributions. I did this for a long, long time. One of the things that I do, just as a matter of course, because of my job, is I pay attention to the competition. The fact that I don't pay attention to Linux right now is not an indication of me giving it short thrift. It's that it literally is not competition to Windows on the desktop. It doesn't matter anymore. By the way, in the same vein, it's been a while since I bought a Mac. I feel like Apple has done this thing that's amazing with iOS, and the Mac stuff is, aside from like Retina display type stuff, it's just not that interesting. The hardware is
by the way, Paul. I don't know if you can see the video.
Yeah, I can.
But I'm running.
Really exciting. Look, it looks sort of like Windows. It's great.
Yeah. What does this do?
Why would anyone want that? It's crazy to me.
There you go. I think that says it all.
Right. I use this because I hate myself. Sure.
It's cool. I mean, it's fun.
Yeah.
and again, we're gonna get those. I know we're gonna get the emails, but I understand playing around and fiddling around with it, and that's why a lot of people use Linux because they're geeky and they want to play around with something different. Yeah, fine. That's the same. That's okay. I like that.
Yeah, but you know what that is? Seriously, technology is not the destination. It's how you get to the destination. People use Linux. It's the destination. They want things to go bad. They want to screw around with text file configuration things and. That's what they want, and
that's okay. That's
fine.
great.
It's absolutely fine. Of course, it is.
I mean, I encourage that. I think I read something that you posted.
I mean, this is going away.
I mean, it's the same as programming, right? I think you posted something on Twitter saying that kids aren't going into this. Nobody's going into programming.
Right.
Why?
Well, it's hard.
Well, it's hard.
Actually, it's funny. It's not that hard. It's probably compared to. Regular math classes is probably not that difficult, but it sounds hard, doesn't it? Programming a computer.
I think you know what it is.
What do you think? Like, what are you going to learn? Like how to make a robot talk or something? It's not that hard.
I asked somebody about this, and they said apparently my dog doesn't like me talking about programming. I'm sorry, I won't talk about it anymore. But I think a lot of it also has to do with 20 years ago, or even let's say 20 years ago, when you were using a computer, you kind of had to understand how these things work. Now you just push a button and it does everything for you. You don't have to know about the back end of anything to get it to work.
Yeah, look at
a car, yeah. But look at iOS. Perfect example about how you don't need to know anything about computing to know how to use this device.
In fact, arguably, the dumber you are, the better that thing is. Just kidding.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. My father, used a computer years ago, but he hadn't for a while. I have an iPad. He picks up the iPad. He doesn't ask me one question about it. He has an iPhone. Doesn't ask me one question about the phone. I put a laptop in front of him, and it's like, holy crap, look at all this. And honestly, that's where computing has gone. You don't need to know anything anymore. I don't know.
Perfect.
It's perfect for the world. Nobody needs to know anything.
That's exactly the way it's supposed to be.
All right, Paul, we got to wrap it up. I know you got to get out of here. You've had a busy couple days.
Yeah.
Next week, is it the drinking show?
I think so.
Very excited for this. We hope all our viewers start drinking with us while we're doing the show. It doesn't matter if you're at work or wherever. Doesn't matter.
that's
bring a bottle with
dangerous thing to recommend, but
it's okay. I mean, they're not going to drive. They could get fired, but
not going to drive.
They could get fired.
How could you assume that?
Well, I have faith in my audience. If you're drinking at work, you're smart enough not to drive.
All right.
It'll be fun. The drinking shows kind of take a different spin. Maybe we could go like 20 minutes longer too for the show. I'm sure we'll talk about World War II.
All this insert company name here. This is what I really think of you.
What is this? Let me see here. I got a message here. Can I get a GFQ Network permission slip to drink at work? Yes, you can actually. Send me an email and I'll write up a nice little thing and put my stamp on there. So we'll do. It'll be fun next week. Also, if you miss any portion of the show, of course, you can catch it on our website, gfqnetwork.com, or on winsupersite.com, Paul's site. Winsupersite.com is the second website I go to every day.
Wow.
I go to Gmail first, then winsupersite.com.
That was a good answer. I was worried where you were going with that.
I actually go to Engadget first.
Okay.
And then WinSuperSite.
God, you're so dead to me.
For all things Paul, of course, follow him on Twitter at The Rod. He also does a great show, Windows Weekly, every Thursday, 2 p.m. East, with Mary Jo Foley and, of course, Leah Laporte. Some may say I'm the younger and swarthier looking Leah Laporte. I take that as a compliment. And we'll see you all next week on What the Tuck. Good night, everybody.